Welcome back to Real Conversations with Nora for our 26th episode. And our topic of discussion this week is Finding Your Calling After Divorce. Joining me today is Dr. Cassandra Scott, pastor, author, and mentor. Dr. Cassandra E. Scott, aka Pastor C, is completely committed to restoring the people of God's faith, family, finances, and future. She is the founding senior pastor of Turning Point Faith Ministries in Houston, Texas, where she co-pastors with her brother, Pastor Roscoe Hilliard. The sister and brother teams share a desire to help people find their turning points to destiny. When told by doctors that she could never have children like Hannah, Pastor Cassandra sought the face of God. And today, by the grace of God, she is a dedicated mother of 3 beautiful adult children, and she's a grandmother. Dr. Scott practices empowerment in both the spiritual and physical arena and has actively participated in community and economic development opportunities with ministry, businesses, organizations, and leaders for over 20 years. She is also the senior sales director with Mary Kay Cosmetic and has raised over 200 other independent business owners. She is also the founder of Created to Produce Birth Your Brilliance, a nonprofit training, mentorship, and development platform for speakers, leaders, professionals, and who are experiencing difficulty in birthing their dreams, their goals. I want to add to that their goals and their visions. Thank you, Dr. Cassandra Scott, for joining us today. Thank you so much.
So excited to be here with you, Nora. I am so excited. Just been waiting for this day and to share with you all that God has given to us at this hour. So excited to be with you. You're so beautiful today.
Thank you. You look beautiful as well.
Thank you.
Coming together.
I know.
Share with the audience your views on finding your calling after divorce, because you personally have gone through a divorce and want to know what was that like, finding your calling.
Well, Nora, after the divorce, I think the most significant thing was the pain of it. The pain, the sting of it. And as I went through that pain, I definitely found myself. So it was a dark, dark road, but I'm a believer and I'm a receiver now that in that dark place, that is when God stands in your life the most to show himself strong. I'm telling you, that pain, that labor that I went through after going through that divorce, after being married 21 years, I never wanted to experience that, Nora. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. But the pain of that divorce drove me to my secret place with God.
Wow. So talk a little bit more about the experience of your divorce, because there obviously, like you said, there was a lot of pain. And what are some of the things that you found yourself experiencing? Because a lot of times when we go through situations like a divorce or something that's really, like you said, painful, woundful to our heart, it's like we're wondering and looking up at heaven and saying, God, where are you in the midst of this storm? You know, I need you. But it's like almost like he's like, we don't hear anything. It's like he's still. And, you know, it's like, okay, what's up, God? What you doing? Talk a little bit about that. Because people are experiencing that and they wonder, well, if there is a God, which we know that there is, where are you? How come you haven't helped me in the most painful part of my life? Where are you, God?
Right. I definitely felt that, Nora. And I thought, not only where are you, but I'm mad at you because you haven't said anything. And it seemed like I was just left in a cave by myself and God wasn't saying anything. And I was like, but you're supposed to be God. You know, you said you would bring me in and lift me from deep waters. And he did not show up like that. And a lot of times we try to manipulate him to make him or think that he's going to do what we want him to do. But most of the times he don't show up like that. But one scripture that drove me to him and gave me a better understanding. And now it's one of my favorite is Jeremiah 1:5. Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. And before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee, and I ordained thee a prophet unto the nation. But I didn't want to hear all of that.
Right.
No, I wanted my family back. I grew up in a single family home, and that was just one thing I did not want is for my children to experience with me and my brothers experience with my mom trying to raise us by herself. And so it was really painful. And we had our church together. We started a ministry. I think it was in 1994. I was pregnant with my second daughter, Gabrielle. Our oldest daughter, Carolyn, was about maybe right at 5. And so we had just started this new, fresh ministry. And Nora, it was growing by leaps and bounds. I'll never forget. It was on Easter Sunday that we started. Over 200 people joined with just me and my ex-husband and my little daughter, Carolyn, and 9 months pregnant. And so we started with nothing, just believing God, had a dream. And little did we know that people all over the city of Houston would flood that ministry. Our vision was one ministry doing much ministry in many locations.
Wow.
And so God was blessing, God was moving, the church was growing. We went from one service in Houston on the south side to the north side, and then from there to all the way to Florida. So we were flying back and forth, and ministry was growing, and people were getting delivered and set free. And towards the end of that, after being married about 18 or 19 years, trouble started coming, and we found ourselves losing ourselves in ministry, helping others, but
not
drifting, drifting apart.
Right. As women, we tend to give up who we are for our marriages.
Yes.
And what if everything is doing well, you gave up, everything in your life was going well, and you gave up everything for your marriage. What was that like? Because that sounds like that was something that could have happened. And not only for you, but in life, that happens with women. We give up everything for this partner, and then find ourselves. And I can think of countless women that I know that are in ministry that have had that experience, and boom, there was a dead end, a dark part, and they were left.
That was really a whammy. I used to work in industry for all companies like Union Pacific, Enron, and we decided that after I had the second child, Gabby, that I would not go back into corporate, that I would just work the ministry. And I was all for it. But Nora, I really lost myself in his vision. I don't think it's anything wrong with helping your partner in their vision, but to never find yourself in all of that is the error of my way. And so I really lost myself. I was really kind of happy with being in the background a little bit, just helping in the women's ministry, over the prayer ministry, and just helping overall. But that scripture that I read to you earlier, that before God formed me, he had a plan for me. And I was not going in the plan totally that God wanted me to flow in. And so it caused a lot of pain. And I realize now a lot of things that I did, that I shouldn't have did as a first lady, a woman in ministry, helping her spouse. I knew that there was a deficit, that I wasn't getting as much as I needed and what God had called me to do in my life, period. It was just, and I know first ladies and women in ministry, like you say, that do that all the time. But I'll never forget my spiritual mother, Coletta Vaughn. I went through all of what happened, and I was crying and I was whining, and you know what she said? Okay, so now what are we going to do? I don't want you to be like other first ladies. Because Nora, do you realize that many first ladies never get a comeback. They never resurrect from stuff like that. So it was by God's mercy and God's grace that she literally like shook me like, wait a minute, you're not going to be like other first ladies. You're not going to die in this. What are you going to do to resurrect yourself and get yourself back on the foot? But you don't know what he did. She said, I don't want to hear about what he did. What are you going to do? There's a group of people that's waiting on you. You need to come forth. You need to be there for your children. And then you need to be there for where God wants to point you like an arrow in the right direction to the group of people in the world that need your voice, that need your testimony. And I didn't want to hear that. I was like, oh God, I've called the wrong person. She's not, patting me on my back. She's not letting me lay in her lap. But Nora, that was the best thing that could have ever happened, is that I had spiritual people around me that would not let me wallow in that whole situation.
Right.
So,
right. And, I always tell my daughters and my children, all my children, that I won't get involved in your marriage, of course. But one thing I will tell you is you don't have to compromise who you are in that situation. And when you find yourself at the point where you have compromised who you are, you need to take a step back, reassess, reevaluate the situation, and look at it from the viewpoint of, oh my God, where am I? Because that happens to so many women. We lose ourselves in the vision of a man, and we find ourselves doing things that he wanted us to do versus, and we had Dr. Claudette Copeland on last week, who was
I love her.
Awesome. I love her too. And she was talking about that, about how important it is to have faith-minded, like-minded, but faith-minded people around you, so that when you are going in the wrong direction, like you said, Bishop Vaughn could actually, she's Bishop Vaughn, right? Can actually pull you back into the direction in which you, in the direction you're supposed to be going in the direction you're supposed to be going in. And oftentimes as women, don't you find like they don't want to hear that?
I didn't. I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to face the reality. But she was very firm. She was very firm with me. And my girlfriends that were, with me at that time, that encouragement. You need that encouragement. You need people different types of people to be around you when you're going into that. Because I went into a real dark depression. And I didn't want to do nothing. I didn't want to talk. I didn't want to ever go back to church. I was like, God, you did not come through for me. And I prayed for all of those marriages got healed, delivered. And I'll never forget, one of the daughters in the ministry, her husband was on drugs so bad. We went to her house and we prayed, we fasted, we lamented, we turned our plates over, Nora. That man came home, got off drugs, got back into his position with his job, taking good care of his family. And then the devil is looking at me like, yeah, look what you help others do. And, your marriage, have went desolate, have, went to the grave. And so you have to deal with all those voices. You have to pull back on what you've learned, what you've seen, what you've heard, that you can muster up. And so Coletta Vaughn said to me, are you going to sink? Are you going to sail? You need to ask yourself some questions. And we as women, we have to make a decision.
Right.
In which direction we're going to go.
Right. Right. Absolutely. I so believe that we have to raise up and be who God has called us to be, and not who the world or men have called us to be. So, that was, we could go on and on about that one, right? But at any time, did you blame yourself for the divorce, either during the process or after it was done?
Yes, I did blame myself. I went into that pity party. I went into that, if I could have did this better, if I could have looked better, if I could have said the right thing better, or maybe I shouldn't have said this or that, just drowning myself in who I really was, standing up as the woman that God has called me to be. But yes, Nora, I did make some mistakes. It was, it takes two,
To
to
tango.
tangle, and definitely I was tangling. And I'll never forget, like you said, I had this label, first lady, sit on the front row, wear a cute little hat, don't, say nothing really or get into nothing. But God had erupted this greatness inside of me that I was starting to figure out. I started seeing other women like Claudette Copeland. Literally, I drove to San Antonio with my daughter in the back seat to Claudette Copeland's church to get a word from the Lord. That's how desperate I was. And so women like her and Coletta Vaughn and my mother and my three best friends and even my children, even my ex-husband's mother, who played a very instrumental part in my life. Different people really, really had to speak to me. And then I had to, finally lean not to my own understanding, but in all my ways acknowledge him, and he will direct my path. But I can't tell you, Nora, the shame. And the Lord finally told me, you will not be ashamed. I say, but I'm shamed. I was the first lady of the, I'm shamed. I'm mad, this is not right. This is not how this is supposed. What good could come? Can any good thing come out of Nazareth? I was like, what good could come out of this? I'll never forget going to the store, and I, left my job at Enron. I was investing all of my time in ministry for years, over 10 years. And now when I tried to get back into industry, they literally asked me, where have you been for almost 15 years? I've been working in the church, and nobody would hire me, Nora. Nobody would open the door for me. I believe God kept that door closed. The only thing that worked for me at that time, God told me to use what was in my hand. And what was in my hand, Mary Kay, at this point, was in my hand. I started working that business. And the rest is history of what God did for me at that time.
Right. And wouldn't you say that most women or just even people, but since we're talking about women, have a calling on their lives, a direction in which God wants to send them. But because we're so consumed with other people and their vision and so forth, we lose sight. And so we know that the Bible teaches us that he doesn't tempt us, but he sure does test us to see if we'll pass the test. And if and I always say he causes a volcano to come and erupt because you will not go in the direction that he wants you to go in. So I'm going to erupt this volcano so that you can see where I'm going to take you. It's going to be good sunshine on the other side, believe me.
Ooh, that eruption.
What's your thoughts about
that? Nora, you said the word. He will send a eruption. He will send a volcano to get you moving in the right direction because he loves us so. And he said, I formed you. I knew you before you got married. I knew you before you were in the belly of your mother's womb. I knew you. I ordained you that you will be a prophet to the nation. I was like, I don't want to be no prophet to no nation. Just give me my church back. Just give me my marriage back. Just give me my life. He says, no. I've caused this eruption. And all the time, it's not the devil. I mean, sometimes God will allow different things to happen to get us on the right road. Nora, I never would have knew my call. I never would have knew my purpose like I know now without that eruption. Oh my God. It's just like a woman being pregnant, getting ready to deliver. When it's time for that water to break and that baby to come, that is the worst feeling that you ever had. But on the other side of it, the birth, and what the enemy wanted was for me to abort God's plan for my life.
I mean, oh my goodness. And that is so true. The erupting of that volcano so that we could go in the direction that, I mean, and people, like you said, we want to so give the devil, I know he must be looking at God and saying, man, they give me more credit than I deserve. But they say, oh, the devil is busy. And I'm like, no. God is busier.
God is busy.
Let's
Yes.
put him in the situation. Where is he? Because it's not always the enemy. Sometimes it's just God wanting to get our attention, to wanting to get our attention.
Yes.
Absolutely. So, let's talk a little bit more about this, because you did hit on this. You had you had friends who walked with you through this process of this divorce, who were faith-based people. Talk a little bit more about that, because a lot of times, oh my God, I know personally, I have experienced things because of the love of a friend, and did some things to just so that the person could see, but they could not see. They just refused to see. They would not see. They could not see, and ultimately destroyed the friendships. Friendships are really destroyed in the midst of divorce, or the midst of getting a man. I spoke not too long ago about how we could, I could be friends with you for 30 years, and then this man comes along, you've only known him a year, and it's like, bye-bye.
Yes.
Not really paying attention. And I feel like it's not paying attention. And, the voice of God, or better yet, Dr. Scott, what about people who say, well, I prayed about it and I've talked to the Lord about it. And you're looking at the equation in the picture and you're like, how could you? But again, I'm not the kind of person who says,
right,
you heard from God or not, because I don't know. I look at the situation and I say, God, how could they have heard from you? It doesn't equate. It doesn't look like, what's your thought about that?
Yes. Nora, oh my goodness, we do as women need to pray for those godly friends.
Mm-hmm.
We need to pray that God will give us men and women in our lives that can help us stay rooted and grounded.
Right.
And you're not going to always like what they say.
Right.
But they could be keeping you from a world of destruction. I'm telling you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you. And so if you just got all yes friends around you as a woman,
mm-hmm.
that is not good. And so I thank God also that all of my friends, or those that was around me, all of them were different.
Mm-hmm.
All of them brought a different voice to the table.
They brought a different perspective.
Yes, they all brought a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Some didn't really say a lot, just let me call, cry, and get it out.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't judge me, Nora.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't plaster my name over Facebook, over the billboards in the city. I never heard nothing else about it. Those are the types of friends, like in the Bible, the 4 friends that went and got their brother. He couldn't even pick himself up.
Mm-hmm.
They picked the brother up, put him on the bed, and took him where Jesus was. Those were the kind of friends I had.
Mm-hmm.
They took me where Jesus was because they know I didn't want to be with Jesus. I was mad at God like a little pouting child because he didn't do it like I wanted. I wanted this big testimony like I wanted it. But those friends, Nora, those friends, and I've been praying for we as women to have the right friends. And that's why I love you so much, and all of your godly girlfriends that God is giving you. And it's such an example, not just for us, but for the next generation of women that are coming forth. It's very, very needed. These 4 friends, 4 is the number of creative ideas. Mm-hmm. These 4 friends walked to the revival. Number 1, they picked the friend up and said, we're taking you where Jesus is, because you don't even have the strength to get up. And there will be times in our lives when we don't have the strength, where we need our friends to pick us up and carry us on that bed. And when they got to the revival, because Jesus' name was so big and he was healing people everywhere, when they got to revival, there was no way for the 4 friends to get their friend who was on the bed of affliction at the feet of Jesus. You know what they did, Nora? This is the kind of friends I want. What did they do, Nora?
They went to the roof and lowered it down.
They lifted up the roof and wheel the friend down in front of Jesus, Nora. That's what my friends did, because I had no strength to do that. I had no strength. I was in such a dark, deep, satanic, suicidal state.
Jesus.
It was nobody but God that knew that I would need those type of people in my life. And I pray for women that push godly, assigned people away from them. Jonathan was assigned to David. God will assign the right friends. And Jonathan wasn't trying to steal the show. He pushed David. You need friends that's going to push you up. They know you got value. That's what they was telling me, Nora. We know you got to call a God. You cannot waste this.
And then, you know, what I think is so sad is that everything that you just talked about, but then you have these women and they'll see things that the man is doing. And since we're talking about men and women right now, that is totally inappropriate, totally not right, but just will not speak up. And so I agree with you 100%. We have to continue to pray for those women that are in those situations, because to me, that's a bondage situation. It's not a godly situation.
It is.
You know, I always tell my husband what I love about him after 40 plus years, 40.
I admire that.
40 plus years. What I love about him, I always remind him, is that he has always allowed me to be me. I have always allowed him to be him. And we don't have a relationship where he tells me what I can and cannot do. You know, he leaves that to God. You know, right. And so that to me is a healthy relationship. You can set a foundation on that. That doesn't mean our relationship has been perfect, but one thing I can go back to saying is, how healthy is the relationship, you know?
Man, Nora, for you and your husband to have been married as long as you have, I'm telling you, with where our world is and where relationships are, people are needing to hear the voice of people that have come out, that have been able to divide that Red Sea and cross over to the other side, because it's not easy for anybody. But do you have the ability, and the two shall become one?
Right.
Do you have the ability where you came from the north side, your spouse came from the south side? And that's what I was like. We preaching this word and we can't become one. Right. We can't see the same thing. We can't have, you know, Cassandra's view, Gary's view, but God's view.
Yes.
What is God's view? And so that's what I say to people now. I even want to open a counseling center for men and women that are going through divorce. And I want to say that I'll pay for the divorce. They have to go through my counseling services before I pay for that divorce.
Right. To make sure that that's the route.
To make sure that that's the right thing to do.
Right.
That's just one of my little dreams.
Oh my goodness. And that's such a great dream, because I think that we, and don't get me wrong, I know that there are points where people do divorce. Divorce is, I'll have to say, necessary.
Yes, definitely.
I don't believe that we serve a God that says stay in a situation. And we know back in the church in the old days, it was like stay. Even though you were being abused, you're being whooped and everything else.
That's not God's will.
That's not God's will. We serve a loving and compassionate and caring and wonderful God. And so we know that, again, there would come the friends, hopefully the friends, but the friends could be there. But the last thing is, will you pay attention?
Will you listen?
Will you
Nora,
listen?
where would I be if I didn't listen? I guarantee you I wouldn't be on this live with you right now if I did not listen. What have we aborted? What have we stepped in the way of what God really wanted to happen for our lives because we would not listen? And I know a lot of women can definitely agree with us maybe once they came on the other side,
Right.
you can look back and say, if you're really real with yourself, if
Right.
if you're being truthful to yourself, be true to thine own self. I'm telling you, I wouldn't have gotten as far as I've gotten without listening to those godly voices.
And the other part of that is too that we as women have so many insecurities that men don't have. Not to say that there are some that don't, but there's a greater, they seem to just come through this stuff. We just linger and stay in the self-pity, and again, it goes back to having those friends that can look at you and say, no, like Bishop said, Bishop Vaughn said, no, okay, that's all well and good, but what are you going to do?
Right.
What are you going to do?
And so, Nora, you know what she said? She says, I need you to call me back in 2 days. And I need you to tell me what direction you're going in. And I'm thinking, is she for real? I just poured out my heart to her. And she's telling me to call her back in 2 days and let her know what direction I'm going in. And guess what she said, Nora? And if you don't do it, just don't bother to call me back. Baby. I said, what? What does she mean? Don't call her back. I wanted her to like rub my wound. Let me stay in this, wounded state. She was like, no. You know what she said, Nora? A group of people are waiting on you. How prepared are you going to be? And I'm like, what group of people? Who wants to hear anything from me? Matter of fact, I don't want to talk to any people. She said, there's a group of people that is waiting for you that God has assigned you for. And this is your season of preparation. And call me back and let me know what you're going to do about enrolling in school. I said, in school? Who wants to go to school? She says, you need to go and get your doctorate degree. And if you don't do it, don't call me. Or better yet, when you're done with it, call me back.
Now, most people would have got mad.
Jesus. You know what I did, Nora? I got up off that floor. I got enrolled in school, Cornerstone University. And in my wounds, in my darkest hour, I finished my doctorate degree in theology and Christian counseling. In my dark. And so in the dark, Nora, is where God has ordained me to minister to women. In the dark is the time, if you remember the children of Israel who had been in bondage for over 400 years, when Moses had gotten the mandate, and a mandate is an official order or a commission to do something. Moses got a commission from God to tell the children of Israel, let's go. We're not gonna be subject in bondage. We're not going to be confined any longer. And guess when they moved? Guess when they shifted? Nora, they shifted over 1 million people. Moses led over 1 million people. What if Moses would have got into himself and his inabilities? Remember, he kept saying, not me, God. I don't talk right. I don't have it going on like my brother, Aaron. But God had called him to do the call, which you just talked about, is what God was trying to get out of me. And over 1 million people, not to mention children and women, fled from Pharaoh in the middle of night. And God will set us up at night, Nora, to escape the plan of the enemy. So when the morning comes, the dew is fresh on the ground. And Nora, that is what he did for me. Would I wish that on anybody? No. But what I have gained on the other side cannot be compared. I never would have thought that I would be an author of 5 books. I never would have thought that I would be a senior sales director in Mary Kay. Not to mention the women that I've trained all over the world who are very successful, who have gotten out of the bondage and the grips of Pharaoh, women that could not even tell me they could have their driver's license to get a car, who didn't believe in themselves. helping women get out of debt,
Jesus.
finding their spiritual identity. Just graduating 26 new ladies out of Birth Your Brilliance this year who found their identity in God more than they did in a thing. In the middle of a pandemic, women are birthing, Nora. Women are seeing and walking right out of the enemy's camp. And I am so glad to be connected to women like you and women like Coletta Bunn and Claudette Claudette Copeland, and women all over the world who God puts in your life to point you in the right, and not to mention what you've said to me, pointing me in the right direction in any and every area. Everybody that is there for a reason.
Right.
You know, but you got to be careful about the ones that want you to stay in the boat with them and never change as well. So it's two sides to the story. Which side are you going to be a part of is the end of, you know, where we are right now.
Right. Wow. Well, Dr. Scott, I want to thank you for being our guest today on Real Conversations with Nora. Are there any last minute comments that you would like to share with the audience before you leave?
I just would like to let all the women know that they are created to produce, and no weapon that is formed against you shall prosper. And when God created you, he created a masterpiece. If I could speak to every woman that listens to this broadcast, I want you to know that God loves you, and this is your turning point. Wherever you are in your life, it's your time to make a difference. God bless you and God keep you.
And will
Thank
you
so much, Nora.
Your website? Will you share with them your website so that they can, you know, follow you or get more information?
Yes, absolutely. Definitely. My website is www.createdtoproduce.org. www.created2produce.org. And all of my information is there.
Well, once again, I want to thank you, Dr. Scott, for your insight. Oh, my goodness, your insight on today's topic, rather. And to my Real Conversation with Nora audience, please follow us on social media, on Instagram at BWOTMFG, and on Facebook at Business Women on the Move for God. Visit our website at bwotmfg.com and sign up for our weekly inspirational quotes. Make sure you stop by our retail store where you will find lots of great items for you, your family, and your friends. And also ask your friends to watch the show each week and share it with others. It will be so impactful on their lives. So I look forward to seeing you next Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Real Conversations with Nora. Have a blessed week and God bless you.
God bless you.